On this part, you'll learn how to clean up the movie details view to load all the data using the HTTP client instead of hard-coding them in the TypeScript files. For that, let us go to Visual Studio Code and see it in action. Similar to in the home component, I have already created the JSON files, and in here you can see that we have the movie actors, movie rates, movie summary, and the similar movies.json files. Let us start with the main view, which is the details view. And we know that this is a parent component because inside the details, we do also load the details actors, details movies, and details reviews. But let us start with the details. So for that, I'll just go to the details.components.ts. And in here, the first thing will be to just inject the HTTP client. So in here, we have already injected the activated route. We are going to also inject the private HTTP client and HTTP client. Now, for the data on this view, where we have the stars, genres, and directors, I have created this JSON file, which I have named the movie summary. Inside the ng on init, and I'm going to remove the code from there. I'm going to call, so I'll just type in here, this.load movie summary. So this is going to be the method, and I'll just remove the other webhooks and just create in here the load movie summary. Then inside here, since we have injected the HTTP client, we're going to use the HTTP clients. For that, I'll just type this.HTTP client.get. We're going to define the URL or the path for the JSON file, which is assets, then data, and then slash. This is going to be the movie summary.json file. Since we have set up the HTTP client get, then I'll just type in here subscribe. And the response that is going to be data of type any. And then in here, I'll initially just console.log and then just type in here summary and then just log the data. And here, let us save the changes, but we see that we have some errors. And if I scroll up in here, you'll see that it's on the details component, which says that even though you are inheriting from the after content init, the ng after content init is missing. And that's because I did clean up that part. So ng content init. What I'll do in here is that I'll just clean up all the component lifecycle hooks. So I'll just remove this one. And if you want to learn about the component lifecycles, you can just check out that part. And then I'll remove the on changes after content init and after view init and just keep the on init because I need that component lifecycle hook in here where I call the load movie summary. So that I'll just save the changes now and go back to the app. And here on the movie details, you'll see that I have some data because I didn't remove the properties. But here on the summary, you see that I have an object. It's of type any. It has directors, genres, and stars. So then I'll just go back to Visual Studio Code one more time. Now in here, I'm just going to clean up the stars. I'll clean up the genres and also the directors. I'll then just scroll down, and here instead of just console.logging, I'll just type this.stars is equal to data.stars. This.genres is equal to data.genres. And this.directors is equal to data.directors. I'll just save the changes and go back to the app. And now you can see that we have this data, but the data now is being loaded using the HTTP client. I'll just close this window. Then I'll go back to Visual Studio Code because now we are going to update the actors, the reviews, and similar movies. So in here from the details component, I'll just copy the HTTP client injection. And then I'll go to details actors, open the component.ts. And then in here, I'll just clean up the hard-coded data. I'll just inject it in here. So HTTP client and then HTTP client. That belongs to the Angular common and then HTTP. Then inside the ng on init, I'll just type this dot load actors or movie actors. And if you want, you can just use this suggestion in here. So if you hover and then click and then declare method load movie actors, I'll just go to the details component one more time. And from here, I'll just copy all this code and just paste it in here. Now, instead of loading the data from the ss_data movie summary.json, we are going to use the other JSON file, which for the actors is movie actors. And then just type in here, this dot movie actors is equal to data. And if you want, we have said that optionally here on the get, you can define the return type, which in this case is an array of any. And in the same way, I'll just define it here on the response and set it to the movie actors. Now let us do the same for the movies, so the suggested movies. The same way, I'll just copy this one. And you can see that I'm doing a lot of HTTP client injections. The methods look similar, but you'll learn on the upcoming parts how you can simplify this code by creating Angular services. So I'll just copy the HTTP client, go to the details. The same way, the first thing is to just clean up the hard-coded data, then paste it in here. Of course, you need to import the Angular HTTP module. So Angular common HTTP. And then on the ng-on-init, I'll just go here, copy this data or this method, paste it outside the ng-on-init, and I'll name it load movie or load similar movies. And then in here, I'll not load the data from the movie actors.json, but I'll load the data from the similar movies. So similar movies.json file. And then this dot similar movies is equal to data. And then inside the ng-on-init, we need to also call, or we need to also load this dot load similar movies. The last component is the component for the rates, so or the reviews. Just go in here. First step, as always, just clean up the hard-coded data. Here, you need to inject the HTTP client, and then in here, we're going to have a method, but let us just copy this other method from the details movies, paste it down here. I'll just change the name to be load movie rates. Then scroll down. Here we have movie rates .json, and then in here we're going to have this .load movie rates. So just call the method, and then in here we set the value of the movie rates to be the data. Now in here, if you want, you can also call the method inside the constructor. You can also call the method inside here instead of having to create a separate method. But the reason why I have set up this way is because I just want to have a clear definition on what the property is, where is the injection, and how do we use the component lifecycle hooks to just load the data. Because we have said that the ng-on-init is called directly after the ng-on-changes hook method. So ng-on-init is one of the first component lifecycle hooks that is rendered by the Angular app. So now I'll just save all the changes and then go to the Angular application. So in here now on the movie details, you can see that we have the summary, we have the actors, the reviews, and similar movies, but all this data is now loaded from the HTTP client.